Nearly 40 years have passed since Married with Children first aired, and the people who brought the Bundy family to life went through marriages, illnesses, industry battles, and reinventions that nobody watching that first Sunday night broadcast in 1987 could have predicted. One of them was signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers alongside a future Hall of Famer, and cut before he ever played a single down. Another was hospitalized in Los Angeles just this past spring, still fighting a disease that has slowly taken her mobility. Having released a memoir just weeks earlier called You with the Sad Eyes, a third voluntarily walked away from a top-rated sitcom at the height of his fame, and went on to become The Wizard of Oz on Broadway, and a fourth was freeze-dried after his death and permanently preserved by a taxidermy studio in Los Angeles County. For 11 seasons and 259 episodes, the Bundys lived in the loudest, crudest, most beloved house on American television. This is what happened to the people who lived inside it. If you watched every episode of Married with Children, you know Bob Rooney by face, if not always by name. The round, always hungry, always earnest member of No Ma'am, Al Bundy's ridiculous men's rights organization at the shoe store. He was Al's high school buddy, his low-stakes sidekick, and the treasurer of a club whose primary mission was hating their wives out loud. The actor bringing him to life was Edward Earl Bell, professionally known as E. Bell, and by the time he showed up in the Bundy universe in the 8th season, he was 37 years old, already a decade into one of the strangest working careers in Hollywood. Bell was born on December 27, 1955, in Norfolk, Virginia, the son of a Navy man who moved the family from base to base throughout Ed's childhood. He eventually settled into the Chicago area, where the theater scene of the late 1970s pulled him in for good. In 1983, he made the westward move to California and began the slow, decade-long climb of a jobbing character actor. His first steady sitcom work came in an early 80s pilot called Herndon, a coincidence that would echo years later when its co-star, a young model named Ted McGinley, ended up living next door to Al Bundy on the same soundstage. Between them came appearances on almost every long-running comedy of the decade: Different Strokes, Cheers, and, most eerily, the 1991 dark comedy Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead, alongside a teenage Christina Applegate. 3 years before, he would join her on Fox. He was the angry basketball fan in Billy Crystal's Forget Paris. He was in Air Force One, opposite Harrison Ford. He was in the Coen brothers' Hail Caesar. IMDb lists roughly 100 credits, but the true tally is considerably larger. The role of Bob Rooney arrived in the fall of 1993 and stayed with Bell through the show's final episode in 1997. He appeared in nearly 24 episodes across seasons 8 through 11. Often as one of the last true believers in Al's most absurd schemes, from the strip club excursions to the various No Moam crusades. Off-camera, he has spent more than 2 decades as the tenor banjo player and lead vocalist of an Americana and folk group called The Wooligans, a genuine musical life running quietly parallel to the day job. Today in 2026, E. Bell is 70 years old, still living in Southern California, still working steadily, and still delighting the Married with Children fan circuit that turns out for him at every Bundy Club event. A face that everyone in America saw at least a dozen times, and a life built entirely on his own terms. Every long-running sitcom eventually reaches for the same panic move: add a cute small child to inject fresh energy into a fading formula. The Brady Bunch had Cousin Oliver. Family Ties had Andrew. Married with Children had Seven. The abandoned son of Peg's hillbilly cousins from Wanker County dropped on the Bundy's couch in the 7th season premiere and quietly forgotten by the end of that same season. The child actor tasked with this thankless role was Shane Sweet. He was 6 years old, and it was very nearly his first speaking part. Christopher Shane Sweet was born on January 6, 1986, in Burbank, California, close enough to the Warner Brothers lot that a childhood in the industry was almost inevitable. His first ever television credit was a guest appearance on Cheers in early 1992. A few months later, in September of that same year, he walked onto the Married with Children, set to shoot the 7th season premiere, Magnificent Seven, in which Bobcat Goldthwait and Linda Blair, the Linda Blair of The Exorcist, played his neglectful biological parents, and quietly abandoned him at the Bundy house. Peggy adopted him. Al tolerated him. American audiences, brutally and unanimously, rejected him. The writers responded with a slow, quiet burial. Seven's lines shrank week by week. His storylines disappeared. In the final episode featuring the character, Peggy and the Pirates, he is last seen being tucked into bed by the Darcys next door. And then he simply never returns. A full season later, a subtle joke has him appear as a missing child on the side of a milk carton in the background of a scene. It's one of the coldest, funniest write-outs in sitcom history. It also unavoidably meant that a 6-year-old boy was fired from a top 10 hit show in front of the whole country. Sweet regrouped. In 1997, he landed a lead role in Nickelodeon's science fiction series, The Journey of Alan Strange, playing Josh Stevenson across all 57 episodes for 3 seasons. A much better fit for his sincere, earnest child actor register. He voiced Tim Drake, the second Robin, in the DC animated universe on Static Shock and The New Batman Adventures. He grew up into a working musician, playing in bands including Atlanta and the Celestial Matinee. Both Amanda Bearse and David Faustino have said, publicly and kindly, that they always felt for the little boy who arrived on their loud adult set and was quietly shown the door, and that they hope he found his footing. Today, in 2026, Shane Sweet is 40 years old, based in the Los Angeles area, and remembered fondly by the very fan community that once cheered his exit. Not every child star gets to be a lead. Some get to survive intact. And that, honestly, is the harder win. Every retrospective like this expects only humans. But no honest look back at Married, with Children can leave out Buck, the shaggy, cynical, black and fawn, briared sheepdog, who lay draped across the Bundy furniture for 8 seasons, judged his family silently, and voiced his opinion of them through interior monologue narration in dozens of episodes. Buck was arguably the most consistently sympathetic character on the whole show, and the extraordinary animal behind him deserves the story in full. The real name of the dog who played Buck was Michael, nicknamed Mike. He was born around 1983 in Southern California and was trained by a man named Stephen Ritt, who had found him through a Los Angeles Times classified ad. When casting for the Married with Children pilot began in late 1986, producers were specifically looking for an older, low-energy, short-haired dog. Stephen Ritt showed up with a young, high-energy Briard covered in shaggy fur. Ritt argued his case. Older dogs cannot learn new tricks fast. An older dog might not last if the show became a hit. And Michael was capable of far more than the producers assumed. Before Ritt got home from the audition, the show had already called and offered him the job. Michael was about 4 years old when the pilot aired on April 5th, 1987. He was extraordinary. Trainers of animal actors describe him as one of the smartest working dogs of the entire decade, capable of holding still through pages of dialogue and then hitting a specific comedic mark on a single distant hand signal. Ed O'Neill developed a close and genuine friendship with him, spending downtime between scenes, stroking his fur and murmuring to him. In one famous accident, Michael suddenly began licking Ed O'Neill's face on camera during a live taping. The audience roared, the scene stayed in, and the on-set bond between actor and dog became visible to millions. Michael's career reached beyond the Bundy living room. He appeared in Richard Donner's Bill Murray Christmas comedy Scrooged in 1988. He can be seen in Janet Jackson's iconic music video, For When I Think of You. He was nominated for a Blimp Award for Favorite Animal Star in 1995. That same year, at age 12 and a half, near the upper end of a Briard's typical lifespan, Stephen Ritt asked the show to write him out. Michael was starting to have trouble picking up distant hand signals. He deserved retirement. The writers gave him a genuinely moving farewell episode, Requiem for a Dead Briard, in which Buck dies, meets a stern reckoning in animal heaven, and is reincarnated back on Earth as a much smaller dog named Lucky. 9 months later, on May 28, 1996, Michael died of natural causes in Acton, California, at the age of 13. And then, in a detail that feels almost impossibly on brand for the Married with Children universe, his body was sent to Bischoff's, the legendary Los Angeles animal preservation studio, where he was freeze-dried and permanently preserved as a memorial keepsake. In a very literal sense, Michael the Briard is still with us. Somewhere in Southern California, the greatest television dog of the 1990s is still lying on his side, exactly the way he did in front of the Bundy's couch, for good. He came to the show in the fall of 1994, the 9th season, walking into Gary's shoes as Al Bundy's newest and most reliable co-worker, Griff. Bald head, big smile, deadpan authority, and the same crushing knowledge Al carried in his bones. That selling women's shoes for a living was a slow, daily descent into nowhere. Harold Sylvester played him with warmth and comic weariness across some 36 episodes through the show's 1997 finale. He was 45 years old when he joined, and behind him lay a genuinely extraordinary American life story. Harold Sylvester was born on February 10, 1949, in New Orleans, Louisiana, and raised in the deeply segregated South. He attended St. Augustine High School, the historic Catholic black school in New Orleans that produced generations of civil rights leaders, athletes, and scholars, and became a standout basketball player. In 1968, he was recruited by dozens of colleges across the country. He chose Tulane University in his hometown, and by doing so, became the first African-American athlete in the school's history to accept a basketball scholarship at that level. Decades later, Sylvester would write and star in a 1999 television movie based on his own high school years called Passing Glory. His story is a small but real chapter in the larger integration of Southern American higher education. He graduated from Tulane in 1972 with a degree in theater and psychology and moved directly into acting. His filmography over the next quarter century included Taylor Hackford's An Officer and a Gentleman, 1982, opposite Richard Gere, Uncommon Valor, 1983, with Gene Hackman, and Joe Dante's Inner Space, 1987, with Dennis Quaid and Martin Short. He appeared on Hill Street Blues, Barnaby Jones, Murder, She Wrote, A Different World. Behind the camera, he wrote and story-edited episodes of NYPD Blue and served as a producer on the CBS series City of Angels in 2000. The Griff role on Married with Children was originally intended as a small recurring bit and grew organically into something considerably larger. Sylvester and Ed O'Neill had genuine chemistry from their very first scene. Griff became a full-fledged member of No Ma'am alongside Bob Rooney and Jefferson Darcy, and Sylvester ended up appearing across the entire final 3-season stretch. In the years since, Sylvester has remained active as both actor and writer. He guest starred on the Married with Children podcast in 2022 for a lengthy conversation about his 50-year career and continues to attend Classic TV convention events across the country. Today, in 2026, Harold Sylvester is 77 years old, still based in Los Angeles, and, by every account, one of the kindest and most gracious veterans of the industry. A pioneer athlete, a working actor for 5 straight decades, a writer of his own life story, and a man who walked into Al Bundy's shoe store carrying more real weight than most sitcom guest stars ever bring. In the pilot episode of Married with Children, when the Bundys' doorbell rang and their new neighbors were introduced, the man on the other side of the door was Stephen Bartholomew Rhoades, a preppy, uptight, yuppie banker with a nervous laugh, a doormat husband to Marcy, and a reluctant recruit to Al Bundy's various schemes. He held that role through the first 4 seasons and roughly 100 episodes. Then, at the height of the show's cultural takeoff, he did something almost no working actor of that era would have considered. He asked to leave, and Fox agreed. David Earl Garrison was born on June 30th, 1952, in Long Branch, New Jersey, the son of a school administrator, father, and a schoolteacher mother. He was 34 years old when the show premiered. His path to acting had begun very early. At Freehold High School, he threw himself into the school theater program and won lead after lead in musicals from The Roar of the Grease Paint, The Smell of the Crowd, to The Boys from Syracuse. He then graduated summa cum laude from Boston University's College of Fine Arts in 1974, a serious classical actor's training. He spent his first professional years at the Tony-winning Arena Stage in Washington, D.C., one of the great American regional theaters. And in 1980, at 27 years old, he received a Tony Award nomination for his supporting turn in the Broadway musical A Day in Hollywood / A Night in the Ukraine. That is the man Fox hired to play a suburban banker on their new sitcom. Garrison played Steve Rhoades from April 1987 through the spring of 1990. Then, at the end of the 4th season, he asked Fox to buy out his contract so he could return to live theater full-time. The network released him. Steve Rhoades departed for a job as a park ranger at Yosemite and eventually left Marcy for good, a plot exit designed specifically to let the character return for occasional guest visits, which Garrison graciously did 4 more times before the finale. What followed was one of the most respected Broadway careers of his generation, the original Broadway production of Titanic, playing J. Bruce Ismay, the disgraced White Star Line chairman who survived the sinking of the ship. Torch Song Trilogy with Harvey Fierstein, Bells Are Ringing opposite Faith Prince, Encores, productions of Working, Strike Up the Band, and Little Me. He played the wizard in Wicked on Broadway in 2006 and 2007 and continued in the role on multiple national tours, winning a Carbonell Award for the performance. He co-starred in the final Chita Rivera original musical, The Visit, in 2015. Off-Broadway, he starred as Michael in a 1996 revival of I Do that earned him a Drama Desk nomination. He played Richard Nixon in The Great Society. He has essentially never stopped working. In 2026 alone, Garrison has led 2 significant productions. He starred in Ever After at the Phoenix Theater Company in Arizona through the spring, then moved to Berkshire Theater Group in Stockbridge, Massachusetts, to lead Love Song opposite Karen Allen through the summer. A production so successful, it was extended before it even opened. Today, David Garrison is 74 years old, still working at exactly the level he wanted to work at when he first walked out on the sitcom money. He is the rare actor who traded a hit show for a full artistic life, and got it. When Married, with children, needed a new leading man to move in next door and replace the departing Steve Rhoades, the show pulled off a small piece of casting genius. A matinee idol, handsome pretty boy actor with a self-effacing sense of humor about being one. Ted McGinley arrived at the beginning of season 5 in September 1991 as Jefferson Darcy, the smooth-talking, allegedly retired white-collar criminal who married Marcy purely for her banking salary, moved into the Rhoades house rent-free, and immediately became Al Bundy's most enthusiastic sidekick. He was 33 years old, and by that point in his career, he had already earned one of the most affectionate mock honorary titles in American television. Theodore Martin McGinley was born on May 30th, 1958 in Newport Beach, California. He was tall, athletic, and photogenic, and he began his working life as a fashion model, ending up in a spread in GQ. A casting director spotted the magazine. In 1980, at 22 years old, he was cast on Happy Days as the Cunningham's nephew, Roger Phillips, a role he played until the show ended in 1984. He then joined the final season of The Love Boat. He then joined the late seasons of Dynasty. He played the villainous jock Stan Gable in Revenge of the Nerds in 1984, and in several sequels, and his uncanny knack for arriving in a show or franchise right as it began to slide toward decline earned him a nickname among television critics, the patron saint of jumping the shark. McGinley took the nickname in exactly the right spirit, with humor and a shrug. He was, in fact, a genuinely gifted sitcom actor, a specific type of self-aware, handsome man capable of playing dumb without condescension. Jefferson Darcy was the perfect role. He played him for 6 seasons and roughly 140 episodes, forming with Ed O'Neill's Al Bundy one of the most casually beloved comedy duos in Fox history. 2 men entirely at ease with their own failure. He was 28 when the show premiered without him. He was 39 when the finale aired with him. After the series ended, McGinley kept working. Aaron Sorkin cast him as Dana's boyfriend Gordon in Sports Night. He appeared in The West Wing, The Practice, and Michael Bay's Pearl Harbor in 2001. From 2003 to 2006, he played Charlie Shanowski in Hope and Faith, opposite Kelly Ripa. In 2008, he took a memorable run on Dancing with the Stars. And in 2023, he began a wonderfully warm second life role, Derek Bishop, the friendly next-door neighbor and Liz's boyfriend, on the Apple TV plus dramedy Shrinking, opposite Harrison Ford and Jason Segel. It is genuinely some of the best work of his career, and it introduces him to another new generation of viewers. McGinley married actress Gigi Rice on June 21, 1991, just weeks before he joined Married with Children, and they have 2 sons together, Beau and Quinn. The marriage has lasted 35 years, a rare Hollywood run. In interviews, he has openly regretted losing touch with most of his old Bundy castmates, blaming a combination of raising young kids, a move to New York, and his allergy to social media. "One of my largest faults in life," he told Fox News, "and I have so many, is that I just keep moving on." Today in 2026, Ted McGinley is 68 years old and still one of the most reliably employed actors of his generation. The patron saint of long-running shows became something better, a genuinely enduring one. He was 13 years old when Fox premiered Married with Children. 13 years old, 5 feet tall, and about to spend the next decade playing a hapless teenage failure named Budrick Franklin Bundy in front of tens of millions of Americans every week. That is a lot to hand to a child. David Faustino handled it about as well as anyone possibly could. David Anthony Faustino was born on March 3, 1974, in Los Angeles, California, the son of a costume designer father and a homemaker mother. His entire childhood was spent working. He made his television debut at 3 months old, appearing as Lily Tomlin's daughter in The Lily Tomlin Special. He worked as a small child on Little House on the Prairie, Family Ties, Saint Elsewhere, and The Love Boat. His younger brother Michael also acted for a time, and in early 1987, at age 12, he auditioned for the second Bundy pilot, the reshoot Fox commissioned after the original child actors, Tina Caspary and Hunter Carson, failed to click with Ed O'Neill in an unaired first attempt. Faustino and a 15-year-old newcomer named Christina Applegate landed the recast parts. All the child scenes in the pilot were reshot with them. The show premiered on April 5, 1987, and everything changed. Faustino appeared in 257 of the show's 259 episodes across all 11 seasons. He aged from a childish smartmouth into a brash teenager into a fully grown young man on camera. The character's failed attempts at becoming a rap star under the name Grandmaster B were partially a parody of Faustino's own real teenage attempts to break into hip-hop. He actually released a rap album in 1992 called Ballistics. Voice acting work followed after the show ended. Adventures of the Gummy Bears, Batman Beyond, Static Shock, Johnny Bravo, and most notably the role of Mako in The Legend of Korra from 2012 to 2014, a genuinely iconic performance in the animation community. His personal life took the shape of a life recovering from too much fame too early. A marriage to actress Andrea Elmer in 2004 ended in divorce 3 years later. He then found long-term stability with actress Lindsay Bronson, with whom he has a daughter, Ava Marie Grace, born in 2015, and a son. He has spoken candidly about his struggles with addiction in his 20s and 30s, and about the slow, grinding work of his own recovery. He hosts the Bundy Club, a fan-driven live event series where he and Ed O'Neill take audiences deep into behind-the-scenes stories from the show. And in June 2026, he revealed in a Us Weekly interview that a full Married with Children revival had come genuinely close to production earlier that year. He had already signed his deal. Co-creator Michael G. Moy had flown to Los Angeles to work on scripts, before an unnamed party pulled the plug over concerns that the new version would stray too far from the tone of the original. The disappointment was audible in every word. Today in 2026, David Faustino is 52 years old and still working. Voice roles, appearances, live events, podcast interviews. The 13-year-old who never really got a private childhood turned out to be one of the most decent people in the room, and one of the last honest holders of the Bundy legacy. She was the sharp, feminist, prim, and permanently horrified neighbor who lived across the driveway from the Bundys for all 11 seasons. The character audiences loved to see reduced to sputtering rage by Al Bundy's every casual insult. Amanda Bearse played her for 258 episodes. She was 28 years old when filming began. And behind that perfectly composed on-screen face lay a fascinating, brave, and quietly historic life. Amanda Bearse was born on August 9, 1958, in Winter Park, Florida, a picturesque town just north of Orlando. Her family moved to Atlanta after her high school graduation in 1976, and she then headed north to New York City to study acting under the legendary Sanford Meisner at the Neighborhood Playhouse. Her first significant screen role, in 1982, was on the ABC soap opera All My Children, the same show that produced future stars like Sarah Michelle Gellar. Then, in 1985, came the role that would have defined a different actress's entire career, Amy Peterson, the sweet high school girlfriend transformed into a vampire in Tom Holland's cult horror hit Fright Night. The film became a genuine touchstone of 1980s horror. Bearse remains a permanent presence on the horror convention circuit for it 4 decades later. The role of Marcy arrived in 1987, and Bearse held it through the final episode 10 years later. What is less commonly known is what she did behind the camera. Beginning in 1991, she began directing episodes of the show, first one, then several, then dozens. By the finale, she had directed 31 episodes of Married and Being with Children. She then went on to direct episodes of Sabrina the Teenage Witch, Dharma and Greg, Rabba, Veronica's Closet, and many other network sitcoms. In an industry where female directors were vanishingly rare in the 1990s, she quietly built one of the most consistent directing careers of her generation. Off-camera, Amanda Bearse did something no other regular on a top 10 American sitcom had done up to that point. In 1993, at a time when Ellen DeGeneres was still 4 years away from her own famous coming out, Bearse came out publicly as a lesbian. She was one of the very first out gay actors starring on network primetime television in the United States, and she made that decision without any assurance her career would survive it. The show's producers stood by her. Her character Marcy remained straight, but the writers did give her a lesbian cousin named Mandy, played by Bearse in a dual role, in the 1997 episode Les Be Friends. Bearse's private life eventually found its shape. She married her longtime partner, Carrie Shanken, in 2010, and they raised a daughter, Zoe, together. She and Ed O'Neill famously feuded during and after the show, over Bearse's exclusion from a TV Guide cover featuring only the 4 Bundy family members, an incident O'Neill has spoken openly and with real regret about in recent years. Bearse has been equally gracious in return, saying repeatedly that they were once close friends, and she hopes the past can stay past. She appeared in Billy Eichner's 2022 romantic comedy Bros, a symbolic passing of the LGBTQ torch to a new generation. Today, in 2026, Amanda Bearse is 67 years old, lives in Atlanta with her wife, and remains one of the industry's beloved elders. In an April 2026 interview with David Faustino on his Bundy Club website, she casually revealed the correct pronunciation of her last name, Bearse, rhyming with curse, a name she has apparently been quietly correcting for 4 decades. She was and remains a quiet trailblazer in the truest sense of the word. She was 15 years old when she stepped in front of the Married with Children cameras. 15. And within a single season, she was one of the most instantly recognizable teenage faces in America. Kelly Bundy, the beautiful, dim, gum-chewing daughter whose airheaded lines fell out of her mouth with impossible perfect comic timing. What almost nobody watching that character knew at the time was that Christina Applegate had been working in front of cameras since before she could walk. Christina Applegate was born on November 25, 1971 in Hollywood, California, the daughter of former singer Nancy Pretty and record executive Robert Applegate, parents who divorced when she was still a very small child. She appeared in her first commercial at 3 months old, filmed her first television movie at 7, and grew up between studio schools, casting sessions, and network dramas. She was 15 when she was cast opposite David Faustino in the reshot Bundy pilot in early 1987, replacing an earlier actress named Tina Caspery after Ed O'Neill personally requested the recast. From that moment forward, Kelly Bundy was hers. She played the role from the April 1987 premiere through the June 1997 finale, appearing in essentially every episode. She grew up on the show. Even in its peak years, she was working non-stop in film. The 1991 dark comedy Don't Tell Mom the Babysitter's Dead being an early crossover hit. After the show ended in 1997, her career only expanded. She starred in Anchorman, The Legend of Ron Burgundy with Will Ferrell in 2004 and its 2013 sequel. She starred in the Bad Moms film franchise. She earned an Emmy nomination and won a TV Land Award for the ABC sitcom Samantha Who from 2007 to 2009. And from 2019 through 2022, she led Netflix's dark comedy Dead to Me, opposite Linda Cardellini, earning 3 consecutive Primetime Emmy nominations for Outstanding Lead Actress in a Comedy Series. Her life outside the work has held some of the hardest chapters imaginable. In 2008, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and underwent a double mastectomy. She recovered. She later learned she carried the BRCA1 gene mutation, which sharply raises the risk of ovarian cancer, and had her ovaries and fallopian tubes preventatively removed. In June 2021, near the end of the final season of Dead to Me, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. She has spoken with searing honesty ever since, through her podcast, Messy, which she co-hosts with actress Jamie Lynn Sigler, who has lived with MS for more than 20 years, and through her memoir, You with the Sad Eyes, published on March 3, 2026, in which she describes waking up sometimes unable to move her arm to reach for the glass of water on her bedside table. She has 30 lesions on her brain. Her mobility is now severely limited. She has essentially retired from live-action performing, but continues to work as a voice actress and public advocate. In November 2022, she received her star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame, standing with a cane and joking through visible pain. Oh, by the way, I have a disease. Katey Sagal, David Faustino, and Amanda Bearse stood beside her that day. In April 2026, Applegate was hospitalized in Los Angeles, and fans across the world held their breath. She emerged on Instagram to reassure them. Health issues are a constant for me, but I'm a strong chick and I'm getting stronger and better every day. Today, in 2026, Christina Applegate is 54 years old. She lives with her husband, musician Martin Lenoble, whom she married in 2013, and their daughter Sadie, born in 2011. In January 2026, she joined Ed O'Neill, Katey Sagal, and David Faustino on stage at Los Angeles Wiltern Theater for a one-night-only and Evening with the Bundys cast reunion, which benefited the Race to Erase MS. The teenage girl who once made a nation laugh grew up into one of the bravest voices about invisible illness in modern American celebrity, and she has done every bit of it on her own terms. The tower of red hair, the stretch spandex pants, the bags of bonbons, the permanent perch on the couch with her feet up. Peggy Bundy is one of the most vividly rendered women in the history of American television, a middle finger raised to every sitcom wife stereotype that came before her. Katey Sagal built her from the ground up. She was 33 years old when the show premiered, and her life before that day had already carried more grief and more strange miracles than most people accumulate in a lifetime. Catherine Louise Sagal was born on January 19, 1954, in Los Angeles, California, Hollywood royalty from birth. Her father, Boris Sagal, was a highly respected film and television director whose credits included The Omega Man with Charlton Heston. Her mother, Sarah Zwilling, was a director and singer. Her younger sisters, the twins Jean and Liz, became actresses. Her younger brother Joey became one too. Katey studied voice and acting at the Californian Institute of the Arts in Valencia. And then, in May 1981, when she was 27, her father, Boris Sagal, was killed in a helicopter accident while scouting locations for a television movie in Oregon, struck by the tail rotor as he stepped away from the aircraft. It was one of the defining traumas of her early adulthood. She spent the years that followed as a professional backup singer, for Bob Dylan, for Olivia Newton-John, for Etta James, for Tanya Tucker. She toured for 2 years as one of Bette Midler's legendary harlots, performing in the wildly theatrical stage, shows Midler headlined in the late 1970s and early 1980s. She was performing on stage in a small musical when talent agents spotted her and cast her in the short-lived 1985 CBS series Mary, opposite Mary Tyler Moore herself. 2 years later, she was Peg Bundy for 11 seasons and 259 episodes. Her career after Married went places nobody could have predicted. In 1999, she took a voice acting job on a strange new science fiction cartoon from Matt Groening called Futurama, in which she voiced Turanga Leela, the tough one-eyed alien captain, a role she has now voiced across more than 25 years and multiple revivals. From 2002 to 2005, she starred on ABC's 8 Simple Rules, opposite John Ritter, whose sudden onset death in 2003 turned the show into an act of collective grief that Sagal, as the newly widowed on-screen mother, carried through the remainder of its run. Then, in 2008, came the biggest reinvention of her career, Gemma Teller Morrow, the ferocious matriarch of the Outlaw Motorcycle Club, at the center of FX's Sons of Anarchy. The role won her a Golden Globe Award in 2011 for Best Actress in a Drama Series. It also introduced her to the show's creator, Kurt Sutter, whom she married in 2004. A genuine artistic partnership that has continued for more than 2 decades. Her personal life has held its share of loss and reinvention. She was married twice before Sutter, to musician Freddie Beckmeyer in the late 1970s and to musician Jack White in the 1990s. Her son, Jackson White, born in 1996, is now a working actor on Peacock's Tell Me Lies. He has spoken publicly and gratefully about watching his mother's own journey to sobriety after her earlier struggles with alcoholism. Sagal has been open about that recovery. In 2026, mother and son are both sober. Her career shows no sign of slowing. In March 2026, Season 2 of Netflix's live-action One Piece adaptation premiered with Sagal playing Dr. Shuraha, a role she took on late in her career simply because she loved the strangeness of it. Today, in 2026, Katey Sagal is 72 years old, still working, still touring conventions, still married to Kurt Sutter, and, by every account, more genuinely happy than she has ever been. The daughter of a Hollywood director, cut down at 57, became a woman who now, at 72, has outlived him by 15 years and built something entirely her own from the ashes. And finally, him. There is a real question whether Married and with Children would have existed at all without Ed O'Neill. Fox's fledgling network was so uncertain about launching primetime programming in 1987 that they were prepared to walk away from the entire show. What kept them at the table was the actor cast to play Al Bundy, a former football player from Youngstown, Ohio, with a face and a voice that made every terrible joke about polygamy and beerland somewhere it could still be forgiven. He was 40 years old when the show premiered, and he had already lived enough life for 3 full careers. Edward Leonard O'Neill was born on April 12, 1946, in Youngstown, Ohio, a steel town north of Pittsburgh, to Ruth Ann and Edward Philip O'Neill. His father worked as a truck driver and steel worker. Ed grew up in a hard-working Irish Catholic household. He attended Ursuline High School and became a talented football player. He played college ball at Ohio University and then transferred to Youngstown State, and in 1969, he signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers as an undrafted free agent, joining Chuck Noll's rookie training camp at exactly the moment Noll was assembling what would become one of the greatest defensive units in NFL history. Ed O'Neill was cut from that camp, competing at his position against a future Pro Football Hall of Famer named Mean Joe Green, and against L.C. Greenwood. He has told the story many times since. He drove home to Youngstown with the future entirely open in front of him and no obvious idea what to do with it. He worked as a substitute high school social studies teacher. He drove trucks. Then, on something close to a whim, he took an acting class in Youngstown, and something clicked. He moved to Chicago and joined the young company forming around the legendary Steppenwolf Theater, then to New York, and slowly built his stage career. His film debut came in the 1980 Sidney Lumet drama Cruising, opposite Al Pacino. In 1985, he had a small, memorable turn in John Landis's Chicago comedy Spies Like Us. And in early 1987, at 40 years old, he auditioned for and won the role of Al Bundy. The rest, as the phrase goes, is decades of American television. Al Bundy, the failed high school football hero who once scored 4 touchdowns in a single game against Andrew Johnson High School, the perpetually broke women's shoe salesman with a lazy wife and 2 feral children, became one of the most instantly recognizable comic characters of the entire 1990s. O'Neill played him for 11 seasons and 259 episodes, then spent a decade grinding through film and television roles. including John Sayles' masterpiece Lone Star in 1996, a memorable turn in Wayne's World, as Glenn the manager of Stan Mikita's Donuts, and voice work in Pixar's Finding Nemo and Finding Dory. And then, at 63 years old, he did the impossible. He found a second career-defining show. From 2009 to 2020, on ABC's Modern Family, Ed O'Neill played Jay Pritchett, the gruff, aging patriarch with a much younger Colombian wife and an emotional life he was quietly learning to feel out loud. The role earned him a Screen Actors Guild Award, ran for 11 seasons and 250 episodes, and introduced him to an entire second generation of viewers who had never seen Married with Children at all. It is genuinely one of the great late-career comebacks in American television history. O'Neill married actress Catherine Russoff on August 30th, 1986. Just months before the Married with Children pilot was filmed, they have 2 daughters together, Sophia and Claire. They have been together for 40 years. On April 12th, 2026, Ed O'Neill turned 80 years old, and the tributes came pouring in from every direction. His Modern Family co-star, Sofia Vergara, wrote on Instagram, "Feliz cumpleaños to my favorite husband." His fans across 2 full generations of Fox and ABC viewers made his birthday hashtag trend for a full day. He remains, in 2026, one of the most beloved working actors in America. The former Steelers hopeful who was cut from training camp against Joe Green ended up being the reason a whole television network survived. That is a story you could not sell in a script. There it is, an entire universe that existed just behind the cameras of Married with Children. Illnesses fought in public and won against every day. Broadway triumphs, directing careers built quietly behind the scenes, coming out stories that changed what was possible on network television, football careers that never happened, rap albums that nobody remembers, a dog that has literally been preserved forever, and a reunion at the Wiltern Theater in January 2026 for the 4 surviving Bundys that gave fans a rare, tender look at the 4 faces they had grown up watching. 11 seasons and 259 episodes of a show that was supposed to fail. 40 years of memories built from a set that was supposed to close after a few weeks. Careers that went in every possible direction, and lives that turned out nothing at all like the characters they played. Tell us in the comments below, who was your favorite actor from Married with Children? Whose story surprised you the most? And where in the world are you watching from today? An American city, somewhere in Latin America, somewhere in Europe, or somewhere further away. If you want to keep finding the real stories behind the classic sitcoms and the people who created them, subscribe to this channel and ring the bell. Every week, we go past the reruns and into the lives.